Back when I was in my 20s, which was just a couple of decades ago, everybody either wanted a Mitsubishi Evo or a Subaru WRX. Their looks and performance and rally heritage gave them so much street cred. Well, the Evo is long gone and the 2022 WRX is here, but does it live up to expectations? Let's find out. Welcome to Four Wheels and a Seat. My name is Alex Dalrymple, and every week I review a brand new car. To make sure you don't miss one, hit the subscribe button down below. In this world of electric and hybrid powertrains, the WRX does feel like a bit of a throwback to a simpler time. It's yesterday's hero, back when cars were aggressive and angry. And you know, from the front you can still see a fair bit of that here with the bonnet scoop, the low nose, the big front grille here, and these angular lights. Side on, and we've got 18-inch alloys in wheel arches here, surrounded by black cladding, which actually serves a practical purpose. They protect against stone chips if you're heading off-road and doing a bit of rally driving. And you can see the lines here, they kind of bulge out and add to the overall aggressive look. From behind, we have a similar look to the Subaru BRZ with these light clusters taking on a similar shape. The lower bumper here is actually quite busy and feels a little bit plasticky. We've got four big exhausts there that don't make quite as much noise as you think they would, but I'm sure you can find someone to fix that up for you. Underneath the boot lid, we've got a 411 litre storage space, which is a little bit on the shallow side, but it is quite deep, making it a pretty practical space. And a little lip spoiler up here on top. Under the bonnet, we've got Subaru's famous four-cylinder boxer engine, which outputs 202 kilowatts of power and 350 newton meters of torque, which it delivers most of the way through the rev range. All-wheel drive has a 6-speed manual transmission. There's a turbocharger there, the functional bonnet scoop, which leads to a big air cooler that kind of looks a bit like a grill in a teppanyaki restaurant, and it will shoot you to 100 k's per hour in around about 6 seconds. Inside, the dash is really well designed. There's a nice mix of materials, a few harsh, scratchy plastics though up on top here and down below the waistline, but we do have some soft touch materials, sort of a leatherette here with red stitching, but there are a few quirks though, both good and bad. The center console screen is an 11.6-inch tablet-style unit that works pretty well. Most of the functionality for the car is actually run through this screen, so there's very few physical buttons, which means that to do a lot of things, you do have to take your eyes off the road and kind of go through a couple of menus to do some basic functions. There is wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well. 2 USB-A ports and an audio input here, as well as a 12-volt outlet. We've got a nice big tray here to store your phone. Unfortunately, no wireless charging. Gear shifter has a good feel to it. I wish the throw was a little bit shorter and just a bit more positive in its sort of notchiness. It's good. It's not bad. It's just I've had better. The lower console here is well, a lot of plastic. There's a little coin tray here to pay the tolls with your coins. Not that you're going to find one of those anywhere anytime soon. A couple of cup holders, a nice big handbrake, which is great for parking the car. And the armrest here has a tiny little center console bin, and curiously, there's a CD player here. Again, Subaru, pretty much the only manufacturer who is now putting CD players in their cars. Don't know why, but it's there if you need it. No head-up display in this car, unfortunately. The instrument cluster is a hybrid analog-digital unit, which again kind of fits in with this car's kind of slightly old-world sort of aesthetic. The dials are really nice, big and clear. There's an LED screen in the middle which you can adjust a little bit. There's a few different customization options there. I like having the turbo boost gauge on there. The steering wheel has a good feel to it. Quite a few buttons here and some nice solid switches, which actually makes adjusting the volume and the cruise control easy to do with these rocker switches here. It's got a nice flat bottom and it's great to throw around in the corners. The seats are suede with leather accents. They're actually very comfortable. We've got electric adjustment here for the driver, and the seating position is nice and high in the cabin. Great visibility out the front and all round, and a nice view there through the sunroof. Some faux sort of carbon fiber plastic finish here on the doors and some more leather, and some of these plastics here on the door again don't feel entirely premium, but then again, you're not buying a WRX for its premium feel now, are you? Backseat of the WRX actually feels pretty good. There's a reasonable amount of leg room here, and I'm 190 centimeters tall, just sort of grazing the seat in front of me, which is all right. Not a lot of headroom though. My head pretty firmly against the headliner here. So for a short trip, it would be okay. The headrest here is kind of digging into my lower neck there a bit, but if I lift it up, it's all right. The outboard seats here are heated, and we've got 2 more USB-A ports here for rear seat passengers. Some more nice red stitching here on the seats, and an armrest with cup holders. So not too bad for people who are slightly shorter than me. This car feels a little bit dangerous the first time you get in it because it is quite lively. It's all-wheel drive, so it doesn't feel quite as intense as, say, a rear-wheel drive car. The all-wheel drive does give you a certain amount of assurance and stability on the road. The clutch is pretty long, so you're really having to let it out a long way before you can change gears, and that does take a little bit of getting used to at first. I think the first time I got in this car, I stalled it, which was a little bit embarrassing driving it out of the Subaru distribution center, and I hope no one was watching. I'm a better driver than that, I like to think. The ride is fairly firm, which means that this car has a great ability to go around corners pretty quickly and stay pretty flat. So it's very nimble and very agile. Sound system in this car is actually really good. It's a Harman Kardon system, and the subwoofer hangs on the rear parcel shelf. Makes a really good noise. A couple of things that are missing in this car, which I really am noticing, especially when I'm parking, are front and rear parking sensors. There are none. And there's just one camera on this car, and it's at the back, the reversing camera. There is rear cross traffic alert, which works pretty well, and there's a whole raft of other safety features. But the parking sensors, you don't really realize how much you miss them until they're not there. Plus there is also blind spot monitoring with a big orange light lighting up on the wing mirrors here if there's a car in your blind spot. I have to say that driving experience all up feels sort of authentic and yet a little bit old-fashioned. I mean, compared to a lot of the electric and hybrid cars I've been driving lately, this does feel like a bit of a step back into the past. And it's not a bad thing, it's just you're seeing less of this kind of thing these days. No adaptive cruise control in this car. We have sort of dumb cruise control, which is just operated from the rocker switch over here on the right-hand side. Just very easy to turn on and off. The indicator stalks I do find to be a little bit annoying. They don't click into place. They just sort of, if you tap them gently, you'll get the 3 blinks for a lane change, and if you do it a little more solidly, it stays on. But getting that right is a bit tricky sometimes, and I find myself constantly having to turn them off manually. Now, if you're really good with your manual transmission, apparently you can get this car to 100 k's per hour in 6 seconds. I'm not that good, but I'm going to give it a go. A little bit clunky. We got there in the end. I hit the limiter there just a little bit. Whilst I totally get the WRX and the Evo, I reckon I like the BRZ better. It just feels more like a proper sports car than this does. And I know there's arguments for and against that. And look, it depends on what you're after. And the BRZ is certainly not a practical option. It's strictly really only a 2-seater. But to me, it just feels a little bit more easier to live with and more sort of agile as a sports car, where I totally get the appeal of this. This is designed to be driven as a rally car, and that's certainly something that the BRZ can't do. But for me personally, I think I prefer the BRZ. The Subaru WRX is a bit of a reminder of where cars were, but it's not so much where they're going. There is still a market for cars like this, but I'm not entirely sure how many more generations of the WRX in this form will be around. So if you're into this kind of thing, my advice would be to strike while you can.